On the agenda for tonight's live analysis, we're going back to last year, 2020, and we're going to be taking a look at John Fogerty, and he's going to be performing a medley of tracks. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to this live analysis. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. And it looked like maybe the intro screen wasn't quite centralized. I don't know what quite is going on there. And hopefully it's going to be okay. I'm looking at the feed and for some reason we are really zoomed in, which I have no idea why YouTube is doing that, because I'm not zoomed in. I'm just starting the stream as normal. And it's not something that I can control, unfortunately. So I'm going to have a little play around with the settings, and let's see what happens if I split the screen and then do that. It is still zoomed in. So if I hold up my hand up here, you might be able to see it somewhere, but I do not know why we are so zoomed in. If you can let me know in the comments section in the chat room whether you are zoomed in as well or not, then that would be good. Maybe we'll have to try and stop the stream and then start it again. So I'm just going to wait to see your comments. I know that my face is really big on screen at the moment. At least this is what I'm seeing. So I'm not sure if the feed that I'm looking at on YouTube is the feed that all you guys are seeing. So if you can let me know, that would be good. And just looking down the comments, and it seems like you guys can see it fine, which is great. I've got no idea why on my YouTube it's just my face really zoomed in. Anyway, we're just going to go through it, see what happens. I'm just going to ignore the feed and hope that it's going to be okay with everybody watching. So we're going to be jumping into this, and I'm probably going to let each song play. We've got a few songs that are going to be played through by John, and then we'll jump into the analysis after that. So it should be all on screen now, and I'm just going to trust that it's all going to work. We'll see what happens. It's live, so if everything goes wrong, it doesn't matter. But let's see how John gets on.
Some
we have it. What I love about these performances that we're going to watch and the one that we've just seen is the way that John doesn't make any compromises with changing keys or taking that A5 in terms of the pitch that he's hitting. It's seriously impressive considering as well it's so long after the song was originally released, and still having that clarity in his head voice, and the A5, by the way, being way up there in the male tenor range. In fact, I think if you look into the male tenor range, it'll say that it does max out at A5, and I think a lot of people will go above that and at least refer to notes above that in the male range as tenor range. But having such control, and the guitar playing is what we are going to be focusing on, as well as that very impressive vocal. I mean, the vocals are going to be stellar the whole way through each song, because John's just got one of those voices that doesn't seem to age at all, but still being able to hit these notes, it's something that does tend to fall away with age, just getting to the top of that range, especially the male tenor range, but John still has that. We are going to be having a little look at the guitar now. If you do have your guitars out, this is going to be one that you can maybe play along with, have a go at some of these techniques that John's going through, because when it's just the voice and the guitar, it's really important to keep the rhythm and the drive going from that right hand perspective technique wise, and we are going to be looking at that. So let me grab the guitar and hopefully not knock everything over. Now, as I said, the screen that I'm looking at is really zoomed in, so I can't see myself or the guitar or how it's all organized. So I'm just going to have to shoot from the hip and hope that everything works on the screen for you guys. So we'll try and bring everything to the full screen, fingers crossed, hopefully. And if you can hear the guitar, then that would be great as well. But I'm hoping that this is going to be okay. So we've got this intro, and that kind of vibe. So the takeaways from that, we've got that little double strum at the beginning, which is giving us that down, up, down. A little bit of emphasis there, going then into the F and then the C. And by the time we get to the G, we're just now turning things around to get into the C. And by the way, just to mention from a technique point of view, with the C that John plays, it's interesting the way that he does play this, because you might want to play your C traditionally like this with your first, second and third finger, but the way that John throws it together, I mean, if you are playing it this way, you can mute that low E string with your thumb, but John is throwing in the little finger, playing his C like that, and just muting and having that third finger just drift over and maybe just touch that low E string, and if you wanted to, put in an extra G there, you could do, but it's not something that I can hear with John's playing. I think he's just very lightly on that low E string in order to keep it quiet, because when we get into this strumming that he goes into, you don't hear that low E string at all, or the G that I just played there. So something to look out for if you are struggling to see, or maybe you think he's playing an F chord there, but it's just a C. And the really important part that I said about the right hand is getting the beat in there. And what I mean by that is the muted strumming that we have going on. So we've got this, and also look out for the way that John is using the left hand. You might see a slight change in angle. So when he's playing and he mutes the strum and he goes, where he's got that emphasis point of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and keeping things driving along, he also comes off the chord so that the strings aren't going to ring out. I might actually pop it back in the video and get it back on screen if it's going to work, and maybe you can look out for the way that John, his hand just moves ever so slightly in angle in order to take the pressure off the strings, to keep them muted, to get that sound on the strings. It's also the case that he's catching it with his right hand, but his right hand tends to be, more often than not, pretty loose and free with that rhythm. So have a little look out for that technique. We'll see if we can spot it.
So they say it'll rain a sunny day. I know, shining down like water.
So there we had it. It was really subtle, but that little lightening up of the left hand, let me get that on screen so you can... like that. Really important for the drive of the song, keeping things to get together and just going the whole time. And by the time we get into this chorus, and by the way, we've got this I wanna know, and that is that's the A5. That's high up there in the male tenor range. It is an impressive note just to be able to bust that out, and getting such a clean tone with it as well, just vocally. It's a great example of the efficiency and the way that he uses air, and how efficient he is with that use of air in order to just keep this range for his whole career, his whole life as well. So getting into, if you have got your guitars out, the chords in that verse, we had our C, G, and C again. So you can just run those round for the verse. And if you now want to get into the chorus, we're going to be into our F, and we've got a slight change to the rhythm here. So John's going to be supplying lots of downstrokes to begin that chorus, just to set it apart from the verse. So we've got this really simple downstrokes, 4 in a row. And then he's back into his strumming, and that was the F to the G into the C. And we've got that little run down, which really nice, melodic. We're starting on the A minor. Actually, no, we're starting on the C, then we're running down to the A minor. So we've got this, and if you want to play this run, we've got our C, and you just take your second finger over to the second fret of that A string, so playing our B, down to the A minor, to the G, to the F, like that. So we've got that. And that's the rundown, and then back into the verse. And hopefully you guys could hear the difference between ending the chorus and then how dramatic the change is to the rhythm of the verse, and how just applying these techniques on the guitar make each part of that song separate from a guitar perspective, so that you've got definite sections. So even though you haven't got the band playing in the background, you can still do all of these things like John does to give a slightly different sound rhythm-wise in the background underneath his voice, depending on which part of the song he's in. So just getting, we will be jumping back into the video, but I'm just gonna maybe scroll it forward a little bit because I know that I just ran it backwards and we want to be jumping into the next part of the video. It might be the case that we hear the end of the performance because I have wound it back, but let's get John back up on screen, and hopefully I've put this in at the right point. But great stuff so far, and we're just about to jump into, I think, Bad Moon Rising. So quick notice about this: if you have got your guitars out, I am going to be switching guitar because this next performance, or his guitar, has been detuned and it's a whole step down to D. So we'll get to that when we get to it. We'll watch the performance and then we'll get into the analysis afterwards.
2, 1. I see the bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad time of day. Well, don't go around tonight, but it's gonna take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I hear hurricanes are blowing. I know the end is coming soon. I hear the rivers overflowing. I hear the voice of rage and ruin. Well, don't go around tonight, it's gonna take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I hope you got your thing together. I hope you are prepared to die. Looks like we're in for nasty weather. One night is taking 49. Well, don't go around tonight, but it's gonna take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Well, don't go around tonight, but it's gonna take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise.
And there we have it. Let me also just mention at this point about John as the ultimate artist and having the songwriting ability that he has and the vocal ability and the playing ability, multi-instrumental ability. By the way, we are about to look at, you can see on the screen, long as I can see the light, this is going to be played on piano by John, so he's got that multi-instrumental ability as well. We are going to be jumping into the guitar that we've just witnessed there, and again, some really cool playing. I know that when you are detuning, and especially a whole step down to D, it's going to be a little bit unreliable on the guitar, keeping the tension on the strings. It might be the fact that my guitar might have gone out of tune. I did a quick tune-up before the video, so we will see. And this isn't plugged into an amp, so I will be playing it with a bit of disregard to dynamics so that you guys can hear it over the microphone. But when we've got is just about okay, we should be all right from a tuning perspective. But let me take everything off the screen so hopefully you guys can see this. And we've got this, actually, if you want to take it all the way back to the beginning, and if you're in standard tuning, I am going to be referring to these shapes as, even though it'll be a D down here, I'm going to refer to it as an E. So if you do have your guitar in standard tuning, it's going to sound totally different, but you will be able to play it by using the shapes and what I'm just about to explain. So we've got the, if you want to play the bar chord intro, we've just got our E up here, like that. So that's that E, down to the B, down to the A, and then we're down to the E at the bottom of the guitar, and we've got this little riff that is really cool, and it just takes your attention and fills the space really well, because if you're just playing an E chord, it'll be fine, but it comes into the composition so much because you've got that little finger that comes in and supplies a little bit of extra interest on that E chord. I mean, getting this, it's just going to tweak your ear when you hear that. And by the way, if you want to play this, my little finger is coming onto the 2nd fret of the B string, so you can hopefully see that on the screen. And like I mentioned before, I can't see anything on the screen, so I'm taking for granted that you guys can see what's going on with my hand, but I'll try and make it clear. Hopefully you can see that little finger going onto the 2nd fret of the B string. like that. It's the C sharp note if you want the information note-wise. We've got this. And on that right hand, we're going. So it's very much that down, down, up, 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 down, down, up, 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 up. So all of those upstrokes are going to be essential for the riff. Like that. And interestingly, again, we're going to put a little bit of the technique under the spotlight here, because you'll see the way that John plays guitar, you can tell that he just plays the guitar his way and just finds the easiest way of doing things for his own physiology, for the size of his hands, and everything that I do mention on the channel about just playing your own way and finding your own way to play things, because sometimes somebody will play a chord that you physically cannot play because your fingers might not be long enough and your hands might not be big enough. So having this chord, we're then going into the A, and the A, he plays with his second finger and it's just barring down. So normally, or I'd say more regularly, you'll see guys playing the first finger and barring over like that and then going back to the E. Like that. Here we've got the same principle, but by using this second finger, it means that John can just roll back down to his E chord like that. So that's the movement that he's applying. Another thing is that he's not hitting that high E string, so he's got control of this, and when he rolls over to that, you can hear, well, maybe you won't hear it because I'm muting it, but by just concentrating on barring the strings that you want, you can mute that high E string so that it gives you a little bit of freedom with that right hand from a rhythm perspective, or you can just be really strict with it and not hit that high E string if you do find that you are barring as far as that high E, but then you'll get that sixth sound, which we don't really want. You want to make sure that you can just hear that A chord. That's something that John does here. So, to mention as well, the shape that we go to is the B7th, and it's, again, another quick movement that John makes. Rather than having to jump up to the B on that second fret, he just jumps over to that B7th. So we've got this. And you can see how my muscle memory kicked in before I had a chance to override it, because my first finger is what does bars on A chords. And I said you'll see it like that more regularly, so I'll override my own muscle memory to now try and play it the same way that John does. And we've got this E. Kind of like that. And pretty much with that, you've got the basis of the track and the chords. And you can pretty much play this how you want. I would go to that first finger as my muscle memory just demonstrated for you. But you can play this exactly how John does if you want to. And again, it's all about keeping that rhythm going. And if you want to play that, he still plays that barred second finger on the A. Hopefully you can hear that. I threw in what John does in the chorus where he starts on the A. I'm going to persevere and play it like John does just to keep it relevant to his style, his techniques. So we've got this, the A down to the E. And here he does his little B7th. And he goes, and he actually skips over to that second fret, and you have to watch closely to see that, but he goes down to that F sharp, so we get this before then jumping over to that A again. So that chorus again, we've got the A, E, B7, F sharp, A, E. And there we have it. That's the chorus if you want it. And playing it in a different way is obviously now going to put more thought, or at least more stress on my thought processes to play it in opposite ways of how I would normally play it. But it's interesting to try and play it the way that other guys do, just to get used to the way that they feel is most comfortable. And that is exactly how to play if you want to play it exactly like John. But again, vocally, on the ball, everything's spot on, totally in control. Playing and singing at the same time, I'm going to throw that in there as I always do. It's going to double the difficulty, and it's something that will fly under the radar with people that don't play and sing. But if they just play the guitar, they will probably find this a little bit of a challenge depending on your level, but certainly these are really good songs to just pick up your guitar and work on the fundamentals of your technique, because you can get into the rhythm side of things. It's a lot about rhythm, a lot about that right hand, and it's something that a lot of players, especially when they're learning, don't spend enough time on the rhythm hand. They all look at the left hand because they see other players moving the fingers really quickly, and they think that that's where it's at, whereas it's not. For just great songs and solid rhythm, it's all in that right hand. And when you're talking about great songs, this is the guy that you go to. But let's get John back up on screen first, and then we'll get into this final performance and then have our final part of the analysis.
See the light.
we have it. Again, one of those songs that is so engaging and so melodic, and from a chord progression perspective, relatively simple. And having looked at the songs that we have tonight, Bad Moon Rising is another one of those where I showed you, it's just a few chords, but it's so good the way that it's been put together. And I'm just going to grab the guitar because we will go through just the chords going on here from John. Even though it's played on the piano, you can still throw it together with a similar kind of rhythm on the guitar. And just to mention what I was saying about Bad Moon Rising, we will get back into this, but the melody line for Bad Moon Rising, when we've got this, it's going to sound a little bit different to the recording because now I'm in standard tuning. We've got this and the little B7th, and I was just about to try and supply a little vocal. I'll try, even though this is going to be a tone above where John's singing it in that previous video. But it's got this, I see, yeah, na 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 na, I see a bad moon rising, and then I see trouble on the way. So that second line, I mean, it's really looking at it with a microscope, but that second line that we have after that first line is a change, but the second line brings in the increase in pitch earlier, but the important thing is that we resolve. So, resolve means going back to the root note of your chord. So, when you've got this, B7, bad moon rising, that's our E. So then, I see trouble on the way. So we're always going back to the E, which is so important because it means that you're going full circle with every single line. So when there is a slight variation on the melody that's being sung, we still end in the same place. So it's just like taking a little detour every time. And this is the great thing about John and his writing ability. He doesn't need to throw loads of chords together or throw together loads of different melodies that are changing all the time. It's fundamentally the same chord progression and the same melody, but he has a tiny change where he brings in a note slightly earlier but then resolves to the same place that he did on the previous line. So it's something that makes total sense when you listen to it, and your brain will organize it in that way. So it makes sense on a musical level, but also people that aren't musical, that don't know about resolving and the root note of chords, all that kind of stuff, it will still sound like you've gone full circle, which is the point. You don't want to leave people lost. You want to take them on a journey, but you want to take their hand on the journey rather than take them on a journey and leave them out there somewhere and never bring them back. So that is what John does so well. Just goes full circle. And like I said, that was kind of a little bit higher, but hopefully I got the notes close enough so you understood what I was trying to say and the point that I was trying to make. So getting into this last performance that we've just seen on the piano, what we might do is have a little listen again, because it's always good to root your brain back in the key that we were in, because this is going to be in A. So I'm just going to play the video just to give you guys a little bit of a rooting in A, so then when I go to explain it, if you haven't got your guitars out, it'll make a little bit more sense.
Long as I can see the light.
So if you're wanting to play this on the guitar, and I know that, by the way, I've got the screen I think still on half and half from memory, so I get rid of that. So you wouldn't have seen what I was doing previously, but it didn't really matter. It's more about melody over the top of the chords that I was explaining a second ago, but I can't see the screen, so I'm hoping that this is all coming across okay. So when we get into this, you can start to throw in that sus4 if you want to, because that is such an important part of this riff that's going on being played on piano, but in this performance. And you might want to take off your first finger as well, because that means that if you do apply that sus2 with the little finger on the A, this is now going to be a D sus4. So you could throw that in if you want to, that. Hopefully you could hear that and also see that when I was applying that little finger, I was taking off my first finger to give that open D string, which will just exaggerate that fill a little bit more. On piano here, John is keeping the root of A while he's playing that fill. So you might even want to go from that A in order to simulate what's going on in this performance on the piano, but pretty much that sus4 will be fine as well. And we're going to be having an E in there, the A, so now we have an F sharp minor, and then we go over to the A, and then we have the E, which is going to have that little fill that we had in the first performance, if you remember that, on that E with our little finger on the second fret of that B string. So you can throw that in if you want to. Again, this is another thing that John will do on the guitar as well as the piano. Just throw in these fills to keep it interesting the whole time. So going back to the chords, we've got that A, we got to the F sharp minor, into the E, and we're back into that again, the E. Those are pretty much from memory the chords for the song, which brings me back to that point about the fact that you don't need loads and loads of different chords. The chords that I've just played are all of the chords for the song. At least that's what my memory is telling me from the performance, and knowing the melody of the song is pretty much all going to be there. So I think the only other change, I mean, I did mention the D sus2, and that is something that we will be going to in the chorus. And that's then the end of the chorus. So there was that D sus2 that I mentioned that you can throw in as a fill, but in these circumstances, when we get to that chorus, that is our main chord that we go to. So just playing that again, if you have got your guitars out, it's the A, and that's where that D sus2 will come in, back into the A, depending on. Then we'll be back into the verse. Fill. F sharp minor. Into the E. You can finish the song off however you want to, but I know we are converting it here to the guitar, and the piano, you can get relatively close with some of the notes. Obviously on piano you can keep that root note going on your left hand, and you can keep it in that position. Like I said, he stays on the A, but those chords are all you're going to need in order to play along with this. And this is probably a really good video if you are learning to play the guitar, to have a go at some of the techniques, because it's not really basic stuff. Especially when we're talking about the first performance, the second performance, there's a lot of rhythm involved there. So it's really good to get that right hand moving. And the fact that on the first performance we had a little bit of catching strings, keeping them muted, keeping them under control, and then Bad Moon Rising. I know that the tuning was different, but if you're playing it in standard tuning, exactly the same. Like that, yeah, exactly. And the... still using the same technique that John did. So another thing just to mention about Bad Moon Rising, I know that we did it before this one, but it's having this bounce from the root note when I'm talking about the rhythm to the rest of the chord. So you might have noticed there where we've got this, so in slow motion, even though that was slower than it should be anyway, but the root note to the rest of the chord, it's that bounce of getting that root note chord, root note chord, root note chord, root note chord, fill. Root note chord, root note chord, root note chord, root note chord, like that. So you get that bounce of that. Like that. And it's probably easier to hear when you keep the chord the same, because when you go to the root notes of the separate chords, it can get a little bit lost in there. So again, if I'm muting the chord altogether, that'll sound like this. So you can hear that definite change between root note and chord, and that's how you get that kind of groove on Bad Moon Rising. But I know that this analysis has already gone on for a while, so we will be calling it to a close now. And thank you guys for tuning in and watching this. It has been one that's been a little bit difficult from this side of the camera because of this screen that I'm looking at. I can only see the mic, the door, and that's it, and a little bit of the wall. So I don't know why it's so zoomed in. I'm just hoping that where you're watching it, that you can see me, the guitar, and the video and hear it all okay. But we will see. I'll only know when I watch this back. But thank you everyone for joining me tonight. And I'm going to be doing this again next Wednesday night, 12 midnight Greenwich Mean Time. You can work out your time zone in order to catch it live. But if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and you can do that if you're watching this on catch up as well. But thank you as well to Orlando for that donation, and also Stephen for that donation as well. It is much appreciated. But I will be doing another analysis video in a couple of days time, so make sure that you catch that one, and I'll see you in the comment section of the videos just across my whole channel. So just stay safe, and hopefully we won't be isolated for too much longer, but thankfully we've got guys like John that can just throw together a few performances like this for us to enjoy. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!